Hello, good afternoon. Happy Tuesday, everyone. So, we're getting back into Women Who Run with the Wolves Myths and Stories of the Wild Woman Archetype by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And we're getting back into chapter 14, which, what is that entitled? Let's look real quick. I can't remember, even though I was just looking at it to create the page. It's called Oh no, that's 13. Son of a gun. Okay, well, anyhow, it's chapter 14, and though I can't remember the title of that right now, we are getting into the fifth stage, which is called the harrowing of the soul. Oh man, and I gotta, speaking of hair, there we go. So, the harrowing of the soul. The king goes off to war in a faraway kingdom, asking his mother to care for his young queen and requesting that a message be sent to him if his wife has a child. The young queen gives birth to a happy babe, and the joyous message is sent. But the messenger falls asleep at the river, and the devil steps out and changes the message to say, the queen has given birth to a child who is half dog. The king is horrified, yet sends back a message saying to love the queen and care for her in this terrible time. The messenger again falls asleep at the river, and the devil again steps out and changes the message to kill the queen and her child. The old mother, shaken by this request, sends a messenger to confirm, and back and forth the messengers run, falling asleep at the river each time. The devil's changed messages become increasingly vicious, the last being, keep the tongue and eyes of the queen to prove she has been killed. The king's mother refuses to kill the sweet young queen. Instead, she sacrifices a doe, keeping its tongue and eyes and hiding them away. She helps the young queen bind her infant to her breast and, veiling her, says she must run for her life. The women weep and kiss each other goodbye. Like Bluebeard, Jason of Golden Fleece fame, the Hidalgo in La Llorona, and other fairy tale and mythological husbands/lovers, the king marries and is then called away. Why are these mytho husbands always trotting off so soon after the wedding night? The reason is different in each tale, but the essential psychic fact is the same. The kingly energy of the psyche falls back and recedes so that the next step in the woman's process can occur. The testing of her newly found psychic stance. In the king's case, he has not abandoned her, for his mother watches over her in his absence. The next step is the formation of the maiden's relationship to the old wild mother and to birthing. There is testing of the love bond between the maiden and the king, and the maiden and the old mother. One has to do with love between opposites, the other to do with love of a deep female self. The departure of the king is a universal leitmotif in fairy tales. Oh, leitmotif in fairy tales. When we feel not a withdrawal of support, but a lessening of the nearness of that support, we can be sure that a testing period is about to begin. We will be required to nourish ourselves on soul memory alone till the loved one returns. Then our night dreams, particularly the most striking, penetrating ones, are the only love we shall have for a time. There is a hair that's driving me nut job. Hey, cool gamer, welcome in. Driving me crazy. I hope I got it. Here are some of the dreams women have said sustained them mightily during this next phase. One gentle and spirited mid-aged woman dreamt she saw in the loam of the earth a pair of lips, and that she lay upon the ground, and those lips whispered to her, and then unexpectedly, they kissed her on the cheek. Another very hard-working woman dreamt a deceptively simple dream, that she slept one entire night in perfect sleep. When she awoke from the dream, she said she felt rested to perfection, that not a muscle bundle, not a nerve, not a cell was out of place anywhere within her entire system. Yet another woman dreamt she had open heart surgery, and that the operating room had no roof, so that the overhead operating light was the sun itself. She could feel the light from the sun touch her exposed heart. She heard the surgeon say no further surgery was necessary. Dreams like these are experiences of the wild feminine nature and of the one who illuminates all. Emotionally and often physically profound, they are feeling states that are like a food cache. We can draw from them when spiritual sustenance is spare. As the king trots off on some adventure, his psychic contribution to the descent is held in place by love and memory. The maiden understands that the kingly principle of the underworld is committed to her and will not forsake her, as he promised before they married. Often at this time, a woman is full of herself. She is pregnant, meaning filled with a nascent idea about what her life can become if she will only pursue her work. It is a magical and frustrating time, as we shall see, for this is a cycle of descents, so there is yet another around the bend. It is because of the burst of new life that a woman's life seems again to stumble too near the edge and jumps right into the abyss again. But this time, the love of the inner masculine and the old wild self still sustain her as never before. Hey, Sarah, welcome in. Awesome. Welcome. Oh, I love that. Freaking awesome. This book is fabulous. Follow along. All are welcome to. The union of the king and queen of the underworld produces a child. A child made in the underworld is a magic child who has all the potential associated with the underworld, such as acute hearing and innate sensing. But here it is in its and now why do I struggle on that word? Enlage, or that which shall become stage. It's like let's find out how to say it. Enlage. I think I learned this in anatomy, or did I learn it? Where are you at? ANLAGE. Anlaga. Yeah, biology. The rudimentary basis of a particular organ or other part, especially in an embryo. Yeah.
Anlaga.
Okay, great. Okay, let's tuck this back. Maybe that'll help. All right, so a child made in the underworld is a magic child who has all the potential associated with the underworld, such as acute hearing and innate sensing. But here it is in its anlaga, or that which shall become stage. It is at this time that women on the journey have startling ideas, some might call them grandiose, that are the result of having new and youthful eyes and expectations. Among the very young, this may be as straightforward as finding new interests and new friends. For older women, it can mean an entire tragicomedic epiphany of divorce, reconstruction, and a customized happily ever after. The spirit baby sets secondary women off climbing the Alps at age 45. The spirit baby causes a woman to throw over her life of floor wax fixation and sign up for university instead. It is the spirit babe that causes women who are diddling around doing the safe thing to take to the open road, bent under their tinker's pack. To give birth is the psychic equivalent of becoming oneself, meaning an undivided psyche. Before this birth of new life in the underworld, a woman is likely to think all parts and personalities within her are rather like a hodgepodge of vagrants who wander in and out of her life. In the underworld birth, a woman learns that anything that brushes by her is a part of her life. is a part of her, rather. Sometimes this differentiation of all the aspects of psyche is hard to do, especially with the tendencies and urges we find repulsive. The challenge of loving unappealing aspects of ourselves is as much of an endeavor as any heroine has ever undertaken. Sometimes we are afraid that to identify more than oneself within the psyche might mean that we are psychotic. While it is true that people with psychotic disorder also experience many selves, identifying with or against them is quite vividly. A person with no psychotic disorder holds all the inner selves in an orderly and rational manner. They are put to good use. The person grows and thrives. For the majority of women, mothering and raising the internal selves is a creative work, the way of knowledge, not a reason for becoming unnerved. So the handless maiden is waiting to have a child, a new little wild self. The body in pregnancy does what it wants and knows to do. The new life latches on, divides, swells. A woman at this stage of the psychic process may enter another enantiodramia, enantiodramia, the psychic state in which all that was once held valuable is now not so valuable anymore, and further may be replaced by new and extreme cravings for odd and unusual sights, experiences, endeavors. For instance, for some women, to be married was once the end all and be all, but in an enantiodramio, they want to be cut loose. Marriage is bad. Marriage is blah. Marriage is unecstatic Scheisse. Hey, that's how you spell scheisse? Cool. That's my favorite way to say shit. I didn't know that's how you spell it. Marriage is unecstatic scheisse, or shit. Exchange the word marriage for the words lover, job, body, art, life, and choices, and you see the exact mindset of this time. And then there are the cravings. Oh la! A woman may crave to be near water or be belly down, her face in the earth, smelling that wild smell. She may have to drive into the wind. She may have to plant something, weed something, pull things out of the ground, or put them into the ground. She may have to knead and bake, wrapped in dough, up to her elbows. Wrapped is spelled R-A-P-T. Isn't that amazing? She may have to trek into the hills, leaping from rock to rock, trying out her voice against the mountain. She may need hours of starry nights where the stars are like face powder split on a black marble floor. She may feel she will die if she does not dance naked in a thunderstorm, sit in perfect silence, return home ink-stained, paint-stained, tear-stained, moon-stained. I did once, I took a shower in a thunderstorm, and it was like a dance on the Appalachian Trail. It was amazing. And the lightning. Oh my gosh. A new self is on the way. Our inner lives, as we have known them, are about to change. While this does not mean we should throw away the decent and especially the supportive aspects of our lives in some kind of demented house cleaning, it does mean that in the descent, the topside world and ideals pale, and for a time we shall be restless and unsatisfied. For the satisfaction, the fulfillment, is in the process of being born in the inner reality. What it is we are hungering for can never be fulfilled by a mate, a job, money, a new this or that. What we hunger for is of the other world, the world that sustains our lives as women. And as child, and this child self we are awaiting is brought forth by just this means, by waiting. As time passes in our lives and our work in the underworld, the child develops and will be born. In most cases, a woman's night dreams will presage the birth. Women literally dream of a new baby, a new home, a new life. Now the king's mother and the young queen stay with each other. The king's mother is, guess who? Old La Que Sabe. She knows the way she knows the ways of it all. The queen mother represents both a Demeter-like mothering and a Hecate-like cronation, cronation in the unconscious of women. Cronation. Let's look it up. Cronation. I think she means coronation. She's used that word already. And a Hecate-like coronation. It's got to be, I think that must be what she means, coronation in the unconscious of women. Let's see if we can search for cronation instead. Cronate. Definition of cronation. Cronate. We found one dictionary that includes the word cronate, slang. Urban Dictionary. We cronate on the dance floor. By not important. Cronate, Urban Dictionary. A series of violent dance moves. The queen mother represents both a Demeter-like mothering and a Hecate-like cronation in the unconscious of women. Those have drastically different meanings. If you say coronation or cronation. Well, I'm not sure. This womanly alchemy of maiden, mother, and la curandera, healer crone, is echoed in the relationship between the handless maiden and the king's mother. They are a similar psychic equation, though in this tale the king's mother is a little sketchy, like the maiden at the beginning of the tale, with her rite of the white gown and the chalk circle. The old mother knows her ancient rites also, as we shall see. Once the child self is born, the queen mother sends a message about the young queen's infant to the king. The messenger seems normal enough, but as he nears the stream of water, he becomes more and more sleepy, falls asleep, and the devil jumps out. This is a clue that tells us there will again be a challenge to the psyche during its next labor in the underworld. In Greek mythos, in the underworld, there is a river called Lethe, 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 and to drink of its waters causes one to forget all things said and done. Psychologically, this means to fall asleep to one's actual life. The runner, who is supposed to enable communication between these two main components of the new psyche, cannot yet hold its own against the destructive slash seductive force in the psyche. The communicating function of the psyche becomes sleepy, lies down, falls asleep, and forgets. So, guess who is always out and about? Why, the old tracker of maidens, the hungry devil. By the word devil in the story, we see how this story was overlaid by more recent religious material. In the story, the messenger, stream, and the sleep that causes forgetfulness reveal that the old religion is right underneath the storyline, just the next layer down. This has been the archetypal pattern of descent since the beginning of time, and we too follow this timeless system. Likewise, we have a history of terrible chores behind us. We have seen death's steamy breath. We have braved the clutching forests, the marching trees, the roots that trip, the fog that binds. We are psychic heroines with a valise full of medals. And who can blame us now? We want to rest. We deserve to rest, for we have been through a lot. And so we lie down next to a lovely stream. The sacred process is not forgotten. Well, we would like to take a break, just for a while, just going to close our eyes for a minute, ... And before we know it, the devil hops in on all 4 feet and changes the message meant to convey love and celebration into one meant to disgust. The devil represents the psychic aggravation that bedevils us as it sneers. Quote, "Have you gone back to your old ways of innocence and naivete now that you are loved? Now that you gave birth? Do you think being tested is all over, you foolish woman?" And because we are near Leth, we snore on. This is the error all women make. Not once, but many times, we forget to remember the devil. The message is changed from a triumph. The queen has given birth to a beautiful child, to a slur. The queen has given birth to a half dog. In a similar version of the story, the changed message is even more explicit. The queen has given birth to a half dog, for she has copulated with the beasts in the forest. This half dog image in the story is not an accident, but in fact a glorious fragment of the old goddess-centered religions of Europe across to Asia. During those times, people worshipped a triple-headed goddess. The triple-headed goddesses are represented in various systems by Hecate, the Baba Yaga, Mother Holly, Berchta, Artemis, and others. Each appeared as or had close association with these animals. In the older religions, these and other powerful and wild female deities carried the female initiation traditions and taught women all the stages of a woman's life, from maiden through mother through crone. Giving birth to a half-dog is a skewed degradation of the ancient wild goddesses whose instinctual natures were considered holy. The newer religion attempted to pollute the sacred meanings of the triple goddesses by insisting that the holy ones bred with animals and encouraged their followers to do likewise. It was at this point that the archetype of the wild woman was pushed down and entombed far, far underground, and the wild in the woman and the wildish in women began to not only dwindle, but had to be spoken about in whispers and in secret places. In many cases, women who loved the old wild mother had to guard their lives carefully. Finally, the knowing came through only in fairy tales, folklore, trance states, and night dreams, and thank the goodness for that. While in Bluebeard, we learned about the natural predator as one who cut off women's ideas, feelings, and actions. Here in The Handless Maiden, we study a far more subtle but immensely powerful aspect of the predator, one we must face in our psyches, and more on a daily basis in our own outer society. The Handless Maiden reveals how the predator has the ability to twist human perceptions and the vital comprehensions we need to develop moral dignity, visionary scope, and responsive action in our lives and in the world. In Bluebeard, the predator lets no one live. In The Handless Maiden, the devil allows life, but attempts to prevent a woman's reconnection with the deep knowledge of the instinctual nature that contains an automatic rightness of perception and action. So when the devil changes the message in the tale, it can be considered, in one sense, a true record of an actual historical event, one that is particularly relevant to modern women in their psychic work of descent and awareness. Remarkably, many aspects of culture, meaning the collective and dominant belief system of a group of persons living close enough to influence one another, they still act as the devil regarding women's inner work, personal lives, and psychic processes. By carving away this, and blotting out that, and severing a root here, and sealing up an opening there, the devil in the culture and the intrapsychic predator cause generations of women to feel fearful, yet wander about with not the simplest clues about the causes or about their own loss of the wild nature, which could reveal all to them. Amrita, welcome in. Happy Tuesday. While it is true that the predator has a taste for prey that is in some way soul hungry, soul lonely, or in some other way disempowered, fairy tales show us that the predator is drawn also to consciousness, reform, release, and new freedom. As soon as it becomes aware of such, it is on the spot. Myriad storylines point out the predator. Those in this work, as well as fairy tales such as Cap of Rushes and All Fur, and continuing with the mythos about the Greek Andromeda and the Azteca Malinche. The devices used are denigration of the protagonist's purpose, disparaging language used to describe the prey, blind judgments, prescriptions, the unwarranted punishments. These are the means by which the predator changes the life-giving messages between soul and spirit into death-dealing messages that cut our hearts, cause shame, and even more importantly, inhibit us from taking rightful action. At the cultural level, we can give many examples of how the predator shapes ideas and feelings in order to steal women's light. One of the most striking examples of loss of natural perception is in the generations of women whose mothers broke the tradition of teaching, preparing, and welcoming their daughters into the most basic and physical aspect of being women, menstruation. In our culture, but also in many others, the devil changed the message so that first blood and all subsequent cycles of blood became surrounded with humiliation rather than wonder. This caused millions of young women to lose their inheritance of the miraculous body and instead to fear that they were dying, diseased, or being punished by God. The culture and the individuals within the culture picked up the devil's twisted message without examining it and passed it on with much effect, thus turning a woman's time of heightened sensation, emotionality, and sexuality into a time of shame and punishment. You know, I was waiting on this awesome couple a couple of weeks ago at the restaurant, and they said something about how he said something about how I'm always so positive and they don't understand how I'm always so positive. I was like, you know, honestly, I'm actually PMSing like hardcore right now, but thank you. I'm glad that that's how you're perceiving me. And like this man just turned bright red, and this woman that's with him, they're regulars. I love them. She started laughing so hard, and obviously this was like a thing, you know. And I've come across this with men before, but I think to myself, it's just like, dude, you don't even have to do the bleeding. You don't have to feel it. I mean, I'm not trying to say that men don't have cycles, because they totally do, but it's not, it's different, right? It's a different sort of thing to menstruate. And so I said something to that effect, and they just laughed even harder. I said something like, well, I figure if they don't even have to be the ones to bleed, they can at least hear about it. Which they loved. So thank God that went over well, because I was PMSing. I was PMSing so hardcore, dude. It was okay. Seems like every other month, like one ovary is like, you're going to get it. And the other ovary is like, you're fine. Oh, shoot. Yeah. Yeah. All the emotions, right? Dude. Okay. The good ones and the bad ones. Or I guess however we assign them. The ones that we don't like and the ones that we like a lot more. Don't like as much. Right. Okay. Now where are we? Okay, yeah, up here somewhere. Shame and punishment. We can see from the story, when the predator invades a culture, be it a psyche or a society, The various aspects or individuals of that culture have to use cunning insight, read between the lines, hold their own place, so as not to be swept away by the outrageous but exciting claims of the predator. When there is too much predator and not enough wild soul, the economic, social, emotional, and religious structures of culture gradually begin to distort the most soulful resources, both in spirit and in the outer world. Natural cycles are starved into unnatural shapes, lacerated with unwise cues or unwise uses, or else put to death. The value of what is wild and visionary is denigrated, and dark speculations are made about how dangerous the instinctual nature really is. Thus stripped of authentic sanctity and meaning, destructive and painful means and methods are rationalized as superior. Boom. However, no matter how much the devil lies and tries to change the beautiful messages about a woman's real life to mean-spirited, jealous, and life-draining ones, the king's mother truly sees what is occurring and refuses to sacrifice her daughter. In modern terms, she would not muffle her daughter. She would not warn her against speaking her truth, would not encourage her to pretend to be less in order to manipulate more. This wild mother figure from the underworld risks retribution to follow what she knows to be the wisest course. She outsmarts the predator instead of colluding. She does not give in. She knows what is integral, knows what to help, knows what will help a woman thrive, knows a predator when she sees one, knows what to do about it. Even when pressured by the most distorted cultural and psychic measures, even with a predator loose in the culture or in the personal psyche, we can all still hear her original wild instructions and follow them. This is what women learn when they dig down to the wild and instinctive nature, when they do the work of deep initiation and development of consciousness. They take on a massive enabling through the development of uninterrupted sight, hearing, being, and doing. Women learn to look for the predator instead of trying to shoo it away, ignore it, or be too nice to it. Or be nice to it at all, rather. Or be nice to it. They learn the tricks, disguises, and the ways the predator thinks. They learn to read between the lines in messages, in injunctions, expectations, or customs that have been perverted from the truthful into the manipulative. Then, whether the predator is emanating from within one's own psychic milieu or from the culture outside oneself, or both, we are shrewd and able to meet it head on and do what needs be done. You know, my mom, she told me, in right time, in right place. Right. I hear you. Every chapter seems to be hitting me right on my path. I'm real thankful about that. Oh, my mom, she said something to me a couple of years ago that really stuck with me. She said that once I was like 15 or 16 years old was when I was really a woman, which seems so weird to me because I was just so insecure and still opinionated, though, about what I would or wouldn't do, what I would or wouldn't be a part of. And yeah, I don't know. I just basically, after I was 15 or 16, I think I just basically terrified my mom. Like I terrified her that she would, because I mean, yeah, try to make someone do a thing, right? Yeah, intimidating. I don't know, right? Sometimes I don't know, I feel so approachable. I feel so approachable. And at the same time, sometimes I don't know. I don't know why. Why would I intimidate someone? I, I don't know. Because I guess maybe I don't know what my boundaries of what I will or won't do. I guess that's why. But yeah. My mom always has my back. I'm really blessed. Oh, me too. This book is so good, Sarah. So good. All right, so let me get a sip. And the devil, ooh, the devil in the tale symbolizes anything that corrupts understanding of the deep feminine processes. You know, it does not take a Torquemada to hound the souls of women. They can be also hounded simply by the goodwill of new but unnatural ways, which, when taken too far, rob a woman of her nourishing, wildish nature and her ability to make soul. A woman need not live as though she were born in 1000 BC. Nevertheless, the old knowing is universal knowing, eternal and immortal learning, which will be as relevant 5,000 years from now as it is today, and as it was 5,000 years ago. It is archetypal knowing, and that kind of knowledge is timeless. It is a good idea to remember that the predator is timeless also. In another sense entirely, the switcher of messages, being an innate and contrary force that exists in the psyche and in the world, naturally opposes the new self child. Yet, paradoxically, because we must respond to fight it or balance it, the battle itself strengthens us immeasurably. In our personal psychic work, we receive switched messages from the devil constantly. I am good. I am not good. My work is deep work. My work is silly. I am making a difference. I'm not getting anywhere. I am brave. I am a coward. I am knowing. I ought to be ashamed of myself. These are confusing to say the least. So the king's mother sacrifices a doe instead of a young queen. In the psyche, as in the culture at large, there is an odd psychic quirk. Not only when people are hungry and deprived does the devil show up, but also sometimes when there has been an event of great beauty. In this case, the birth of the beautiful new baby. Again, the predator is always attracted to light, and what is more light than new life? However, there are other dissemblers within the psyche that also attempt to demean or tarnish the new. In women's process of learning the underworld, it is a psychic fact that when one has given birth to a beautiful thing, something mean will also arise, even if only momentarily, something that is jealous, lacks understanding, or shows disdain. The new child will be called down, called ugly, and condemned by one or more persistent antagonists. The birth of the new causes complexes, both negative mother and negative father, and other negating creatures to rise from the psychic landfill and attempt, at the very least, to sharply criticize the new order, or at the very most, to attempt to dispirit the woman and her new offspring, idea, life, or dream. This is the same scenario of the ancient fathers, Kronos and Uranos and Zeus as well, who always attempted to eat or banish their offspring out of some dark fear that the children would gain succession over them. In Jungian terms, this destructive force would be called a complex. A complex, an organized set of feelings and ideas in the psyche that is unconscious to the ego and therefore, more or less, can have its way with us. In the psychoanalytic milieu, the antidote is consciousness of one's foibles and gifts so that the complex is unable to act on its own. In Freudian terms, this destructive force would be said to emanate from the id, a dark, indefinite, but infinite psychic land where, scattered like wreckage and made blind from lack of light, live all forgotten, repressed, and revulsive ideas, urges, wishes, and actions. In this psychoanalytic milieu, resolution is brought about by resembling base thoughts and urges, bringing them to consciousness, describing, naming, and cataloging them in order to leech their potency. According to some stories from Iceland, this magical destructive force in the psyche is sometimes Brak, the Iceman. There is an ancient story in which the perfect murder is committed. Brak, the Iceman, kills a human woman who will not return his affections. He kills her with an icicle shaped like a dagger. The icicle, as well as the man, melts away in the next day's sun, and there is no weapon left to indict the killer. And there is nothing left of the killer either. The dark Iceman figure from the world of mythos has the same uncanny appearance/disappearance mystique as complexes in the human psyche, as well as the same modus operandi as the devil in this tale of the Handless Maiden. That is why the devil's appearance is so disorienting to the initiate. Like the Iceman, he comes out of nowhere, does his killing work, then disappears, dissolves into nowhere, leaving no trail. This story, however, leaves us an excellent clue. If you feel you have lost your mission, your oomph, if you feel confused, slightly off, then look for the devil, the ambusher of the soul within your own psyche. If you cannot see, hear, catch it in the act, assume it is at work, and above all, stay awake, no matter how tired you become, no matter how sleepy, no matter how much you want to shut your eyes to the true work, to your true work. In reality, when a woman has a devil complex, it occurs exactly like this. She is walking along, doing well, minding her own business, and all of a sudden, boom, the devil jumps out, and all her good work loses energy, begins to limp, coughs some more, and finally falls over. What we might call the demon complex uses the voice of the ego, attacks one's creativity, one's ideas and dreams. In the tale, it appears as a ridicule or cheapening of a woman's experience of the world and the underworld, trying to split apart the natural conjunctio of the rational and the mysterious. The devil lies and says a woman's time in the underworld has produced a brute, when in fact it has produced a beautiful child. You know, in that last, I almost said episode, in that last little bit that we read of this chapter 14, I just lost what I was going to say. Balls. The complex. Oh, well, maybe it'll come back to me and I can share it with you later. Hey, welcome in, Tanya. Hey, I hope work's going well. When various saints wrote that they wrestled to keep faith with their chosen God, that they were all night assailed by the devil, who burnt their ears with words meant to weaken their resolve, shook their eyeballs loose with horrible apparitions, and in general dragged their souls over broken glass, they were speaking of this very phenomenon, the devil jumping out. This psychic ambush is meant to loosen your faith not only in yourself, but in the very careful and delicate work you are doing in the unconscious. It takes goodly amounts of faith to overcome at this time. Oh, I'm sorry. Or rather, I apologize. This actually says, it takes goodly amounts of faith to continue at this time. But we must, and we do. The king, the queen, and the king's mother, all elements of the psyche are pulling in one direction, in our direction, and so must we persevere with them. At this point, it is a work moving into the home stretch. It is a work moving into the home stretch. It would be so wasteful and even more painful to abandon it now. The king of our psyches has a stalwartness. He will not keel over at the first blow. He will not shrivel up with hatred and retribution as the devil hopes. The king, who loves his wife so, is shocked at the skewed message, but sends a message back saying to care for the queen and their child in his absence. This is the test of our inner certainty. Can two forces remain connected even if one or the other is held out as abominable or despicable? Can one stand by the other no matter what? Can union continue even when seeds of doubt are strenuously being planted? Thus far, the answer is yes. The test of whether there can be a marriage of enduring love between the wild underworld and the earthly psyche is being met, and impressively. On the way back to the castle, the messenger again falls asleep at the river, and the devil changes the message to kill the queen. Here, the predator is hoping the psyche will become polarized and kill itself off, rejecting one entire aspect of itself, the crucial one, the newly awakened one, the knowing woman. The king's mother is horrified at this message, and she and the king correspond back and forth many times, each trying to clarify the other's messages, until finally the devil changes the king's message to read, "Kill the queen and cut out her eyes and tongue for proof." wonder if I can have my sweat rag. I do. It's underneath this. Hey, well, that's not going well. Hey, Code, welcome in. Awesome. Try to put this thing back so there's no glare from all that paper up there. Okay. Uh-oh. I have to find my spot. Here we already have a maiden without worldly grasp, without hands, for the devil ordered these cut off. Now he demands further amputations. He wants her now also without true speaking and without true sight as well. This is quite a devil, and yet what he requires gives us tremendous pause. For what he wants to see take place are the very behaviors that have burdened women since time immemorial. He wants the maiden to obey these tenets. Don't see life as it is. Don't understand the life and death cycles. Don't pursue your yearnings. Don't speak of all these wildish things. The old wild mother, personified by the king's mother, is angry about the devil's command and says, "This is too much to ask." She just simply refuses. In women's work, the psyche says, "This is too much. This I cannot, will not tolerate." And the psyche begins, as a result of its spiritual experience in this initiation of endurance, to act more shrewdly. The old wild mother could have gathered up her skirts, saddled a brace of horses, and charged far afield to find her son and determine what possession had taken him that he would wish to murder his lovely queen and his firstborn child. But she does not. Instead, in time-honored fashion, she sends the young initiate off to yet another symbolic initiation site, the woods. In some rites, the initiatory site was in a cave or under a mountain, but in the underworld, where tree symbolism abounds, it is most often a forest. Understand what this signifies. Sending the maiden off to another initiatory site would have been the natural course of events anyway, even had not the devil jumped out and changed the messages. In the descent, there are several sites for initiation, one following upon the other, all having their own lessons and comforts. The devil, you might say, practically ensures that we will feel an urgency to get up and hie on to the next one. Remember, there is a natural time after childbearing when a woman is considered to be of the underworld. She is dusted with its dust, watered by its water, having seen into the mystery of life and death, pain and joy during her labor. So for a time, she is not here, but rather still there, and takes time to re-emerge. The maiden is like a post-mortem woman. She rises from the underworld birthing chair, where she has given birth to new ideas, a new life view. Now she is veiled, her babe is given to breast, and she goes on. In the Grimm brothers' version of the handless maiden, the newborn child is male and is called sorrowful. But in the goddess religions, the spiritual child born from the woman's venture with the king of the underworld is called joy. Here, another sash from the old religion trails across the ground. Following the birth of the maiden's new self, the king's mother sends the young queen off to a long initiation that, as we shall see, will teach her the definitive cycles of a woman's life. The old wild mother gives the maiden a dual blessing. She binds the infant to the maiden's to the milk-full breast, so the child self can be nourished no matter what happens next. Then, in the tradition of the old goddess cults, she wraps the maiden in veils, this being the main apparel a goddess wears when traveling on sacred pilgrimage, when she wishes not to be recognized or diverted from her intention. In Greece, numerous sculptures and bas-reliefs show the initiate of the Eleusinian rite being veiled and awaiting the next step in initiation. What is the symbol of veiling? It marks the difference between hiding and disguising. This symbol is about keeping private, keeping to oneself, not giving one's mysterious nature away. It is about preserving the eros and mysterium of the wild nature. Sometimes we have difficulty keeping our new life energy in the transformative pot long enough for someone to accrue, for something to accrue to us. We must keep it to ourselves without giving it all away to whomever asks, or to whichever stealthy inspiration suddenly happens upon us, telling us it would be good to tip the pot and empty our finest soulfulness out into the mouths of others and onto the ground. Putting a veil over something increases its action or feeling. This is known among women far and wide. There was a phrase my grandson used, veiling the bowl. It meant to put a white cloth over a bowl of kneaded dough to cause the bread to rise. The veil for the bread and the veil for the psyche serve the same purpose. There is a potent leavening in the souls of women in descent. There is a powerful fermenting going on. To be behind the veil increases one's mystical insight. From behind the veil, all humans look like mist beings. All events, all objects are colored as though in a dawn or in a dream. In the 1960s, women veiled themselves with their hair. They grew it very long, ironed it, and wore it as a curtain, as a way to veil their faces, as though the world was too split open, too naked, as though their hair would seclude and protect their tender selves. There is a mid-eastern dance with veils, and of course, modern women, Muslim, and of course, Muslim women wear the veil. The babushka from Eastern Europe and the trajes worn on women's heads in Central and South America are also mementos of the veil. East Indian women wear veils as a matter of course, and African women do also. As I looked about the world, I began to feel a little sorry for modern women who did not have veils to wear. For to be a free woman and use a veil at will is to hold the power of the mysterious woman. To behold such a woman veiled is a powerful experience. I once saw a sight that has held me in the thrall of the veil for life. My cousin Eva, preparing for her night wedding. I, about 8 years old, sat on her traveling suitcase with my flower girl headdress askew already, one of my anklets up and the other swallowed by my shoe. First, she put on her long white satin gown with 40 small satin-covered buttons down the back, and then the long white satin gloves with 10 satin-covered buttons each. She drew the floor-length veil down over her lovely face and shoulders. My Aunt Therese fluffed the veil all out, muttering to God to make it perfect. My Uncle Sebastian stopped in the doorway aghast, for Eva was no longer a mortal. She was a goddess. Behind the veil, her eyes seemed silvery, her hair starry somehow. Her mouth looked like a red flower. She was of only herself, contained and powerful, and just out of reach, in a right kind of way. That's beautiful. Some say the hymen is the veil, others that illusion is the veil, and none are wrong. But there is more. Ironically, though the veil has been used to hide one's beauty from the concupiscence, to hide one's beauty from the concupiscence of others, it is also femme fatale equipment. To wear a veil of a certain kind, at a certain time, with a certain lover, and with certain looks, is to exude an intense and smoky erotomine that causes true abated breath. Something erotic, erotomine. We're going to look it up. The feminine psychology. In feminine psychology, the veil is a symbol for women's ability to take on whatever presence or essence they wish. Man, I'm really thankful to learn these things. Okay, so erotomime. Smoky erotomime, like pantomime and eroticism? Let's find out. Man, why did it was so much nicer earlier. It's so humid right now. Erotomime. Uh-oh. Eroti. Okay, I had it right. Oh my gosh, I'm dripping sweat. Okay, it's okay. That happens. No. Erotomine. Oh. Erotomine. No, I don't. What the heck? I don't understand. Okay. I really want to know what that word means. Man, my ears are so plugged all of a sudden. Okay, I think I put the dictionary back on the other shelf. I'll be right back. Okay, dictionary. Where are you? There you are. Okay. Intense and smoky erotomine. Yeah. It references this book. Okay, back to the YouTubes. Hey, Pearl, welcome in. Sweat. Oh, thank God I put the... I don't think it's in here. Did she make that word up? Wow. Okay. Okay. I'm melting. I'm melting. Oh, I'm like really melting. Whew. Okay, you can sit down over here for a minute. And smoky erotomine that causes true abated breath. In feminine psychology, the veil is a symbol for women's ability to take on whatever presence or essence they wish. There is a striking numinosity to the veiled one. She inspires such awe that all those she encounters stop in their tracks, so struck with reverence for her apparition that they must leave her alone. The maiden in the tale is veiled to set out on her journey. Therefore, she is untouchable. No one would dare to raise her veil without her permission. After all the invasiveness of the devil, once again she is protected. Women undergo this transformation also. When they are in this veiled state, sensible persons know better than to invade their psychic space. So too, after all the false messages in the psyche, and even in exile, we are protected by some superior wizening, some sumptuous and nourishing solitude that originated in our relationship with the Wild Mother. Okay. We are on the road again, but safeguarded. By wearing the veil, we are designated as one who belongs to Wild Woman. We are hers, and though not unreachable, in some ways, we are held away from total immersion in mundane life. The amusements of the upper world do not dazzle us. We are wandering in order to find the place, the homeland in the unconscious. As fruit trees in blossom are referred to as wearing beautiful veils, we are the maiden. We, or rather, we and the maiden are now flowering apple trees on the move, looking for a forest, looking for the forest to which we belong. Apple trees. The slaying of the deer once was a revivification rite, one that would have been led by an old woman like the king's mother, for she would be the designated knower of the life and death cycles. In the sacrifice of the doe, we see more of the hem of the old religion. The sacrifice of a deer was an ancient rite meant to release the deer's gentle yet bounding energy. Like women in descent, this sacred animal was known as a hardy survivor of cold and most despairing winters. Deer were considered wholly efficient at foraging, birthing, and living with the inherent cycles of nature. It is likely that the participants of such a ritual belonged to a clan, and that the idea of the sacrifice was to teach initiates about death, as well as to infuse them with the qualities of the wild creature itself. Here and again is the sacrifice, a double rubedo, blood sacrifice, in fact. First, there is the sacrifice of the deer, the animal sacred to the ancient wild woman bloodline. In ancient rite, to kill a deer out of cycle was to violate the old wild mother. The killing of creatures is dangerous work, for various kind and helpful entities travel in the guise of animals. Killing one out of cycle was thought to endanger the delicate balances of nature and to cause retribution of mythic proportions. But the larger point is that the sacrifice was one of a mother creature, a doe, which represented the female body of knowing. Then, by consuming the flesh of that creature and by the wearing of its pelt for warmth, and in order to show clan membership, one became that creature. This was the sacred ritual since time and beyond. This was a sacred ritual since time and beyond. To keep the eyes, ears, snout, horns, and various viscera was to have the power symbolized by their various functions: far-seeing, sensing from afar, swift motion, hardy body, the timber to summon one's own kind, and so forth. The second rubedo transpires when the maiden is separated from both the good old mother and the king. This is a period when we are charged to remember, to persist in spiritual nourishment, even though we are separated from those forces that have sustained us in the past. We cannot stay in the ecstasy of perfect union forever. For most of us, it is not our path to do so. Our work is rather to be weaned at some point for these most exciting forces, yet to remain in conscious connection to them and to proceed to the next task. It is a fact that we can become fixated on a particular lovely aspect of psychic union and attempt to stay there forever, sucking at the sacred tit. This does not mean nurture is destructive. Quite the contrary, nurture is absolutely essential to the journey, and in substantial amounts. In fact, if it is not present in adequate amounts, the seeker will lose energy, fall into depression, and fade into a whisper. But if we stay at a favorite place in the psyche, such as only in beauty, only in rapture, individuation slows to a slog. The naked truth is that those sacred forces we find within our psyches someday must be left, at least temporarily, so that the next stage of the process can occur. As in the tale where the two women tearfully bid each other goodbye, we must say goodbye to precious internal forces that have helped immeasurably. Then, with our new child self held to our heart and breast, we step into the road. The maiden is on her way again, wandering toward a great woods, in all great faith that something will come from that great hall of trees, something soul-making. Dang. Sun Mao, welcome! Good to see you! That was the end of the 5th stage. Boom. That's good. Dang. Awesome-o. So thank you for being here with me, everyone. Enduring. I wonder if it's hot where you are, too. Woo! Okay, so tomorrow. I shall be back tomorrow is the plan. And tonight, Corey and I are going live. We're going to do spooky stories. We got some fun stuff planned. But I'm not going to reveal anything now. So that's going to be around 8:20, 8:15, 8:30. I have the link already set up. So I love yous. And I will see you soon. Mwah. Thank you. Thank you very much.